If we are live. All right, we're live. Bear with me for a few minutes. I have a few things to get set up here so everyone can tune in to the broadcast. Okay, let's see here. Gotta do a few things to ensure people from different places can tune in. Let's see, copy a link to the post here. And okay. Just getting going. If you're tuning in, don't worry, you're early. I'm early. Trying to get a few things set up here. This is the equivalent of the mic check, making sure that people can tune in. We're streaming to a couple of different locations. So I'm working on that right now, making sure all the streams are going okay, making sure that loaded the, if you're tuning in via the event site, you should see a link that says join here for the online event. And there it is. All right, it's posted, it's ready. Oh, this is so good. Okay, X out of that. Okay, so bear with me just a moment. Just working out a couple of things here. See some people are joining in. Perfect. All right. Good to see people from Egypt, India, Seattle, north of Seattle, Toronto. Fantastic. Glad people are joining in already. Brazil. This is great. I'm based in San Diego, California, in the United States. So we have people from all over the world, which is super fun. We have about 3 minutes before we get going. It looks like, I hope, fingers crossed, all the tech is working well. If you don't already, see if you can grab a couple of pieces of paper, just regular printer or copier paper. It's 8.5 by 11 in the States. Probably rest of the world, it's A4. That's okay. We're going to do something interactive. This is going to be an interactive activity that we do in our session today. I don't want to just tell you. I want to show you and have you try to do things yourself. So we'll try to apply that through a fun and interactive activity in just a few minutes. All right. Hey, Wendy, you found it. Perfect. I think you were just leaving me a comment saying, how do we get in? And I was saying, I'm working on it. So you found your way in, which is perfect. All right. Let's see. I'm just monitoring some of the comments. LinkedIn Live is I like it a lot. There are a lot of good things, good aspects with LinkedIn Live. And there's a couple of things that are still being worked out. It's still a little clunky. So if you registered for the event, for example, there's still some things behind the scenes that I have to do to show it both to the people who sign up for the LinkedIn event and people who just happen to be following me on LinkedIn and say, oh, hey, let's check this out. So hopefully it's working. Hopefully it's working well. We have about 2 minutes before we get started. So plenty of time to settle in. This will be a very interactive session today. So it should be a lot of fun, hopefully. I'm going to be answering your questions. I have some questions that people submitted ahead of time, and I have a few things that I want to share with you. But you can use the comments if you'd like to submit comments if you have any questions. I will do my best to catch them. I will warn you, I'm trying to monitor comments from 3 different places. So we'll see. If I don't capture it during the live event, then I'll follow up afterwards and respond maybe in writing to your comment or your questions that you might have. So we'll see how that goes. But it should be fun. It should be a good time. So excellent. Oh, people are tuning in. This is great. If you see me looking down, this is one of my comment feeds. So I've got another monitor, my iPad, monitoring some of the feeds, some of the comments here. And then on my screen, I've got a split screen, which I can't show you because I'm looking at it anyways. I'm monitoring the comments there too. All right, it's the top of the hour. You're here, I'm here, and we're going to talk about how to quickly train employees on new skills. I'm so glad you can join me. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you don't already, I'm going to ask you to grab a couple of pieces of paper. So just blank, regular paper, whether it's printer copier paper. In the States, that would be 8.5 by 11. In most other parts of the world, it would be A4 paper. So whatever you have available. If you don't have that, just any piece of paper will do. Just need 2 of them. And if you will, I'm going to get one of those pieces of paper, just one. We'll need the second one later, just one. Get that at the ready. We're going to do an activity together, and I'm going to demonstrate some of the skills that I hope to share with you today. So before we do that, before we do the demonstration, if you do have questions about training employees, especially training employees with new restrictions with physical distance, sanitation, or work from home, then feel free to share those in the comments. I will do my best to get to as many as possible in our live event. And the ones that I am not able to get to in our live event, I will get to follow up via writing. So thank you for doing that. Okay, so I'm going to do a little exercise. And I want you to keep in mind that this is a simulation. What do I mean by that? I want you to go through a bad training program, a really bad training program, because I want you to experience what it's like and be able to empathize with your participants, perhaps, if things go wrong. So here's our training program. I want you to grab one of those pieces of paper, and I want you to imagine that we've all just started working at my brand new company called Acme Arts and Crafts, and we make all of these arts and crafts that we sell to people online and throughout the world. And I'm going to show you how to make product number 8. It's our most popular product. So if you'll grab one of those pieces of paper, it's made out of product number 8. And this is a simulation, as an aside. This is a simulation of a poor training program. So know that ahead of time. Bear with me. But I want you to go through with it. Okay. So because we have to make a lot of these product number 8s, we're going to move very fast. I don't have a lot of time, to answer questions. So maybe we'll answer questions at the end. I just want to make sure that you're able to make product number 8. And at the end, we'll see how you do. So grab your piece of paper, and we're going to go through this very quickly. First thing I want you to do is fold the paper in half. So take your paper, fold it in half. Do this as fast as you can because you are going to be making a lot of our product number 8. Okay. Second thing, fold it in half again. So you fold it in half once. Now fold it in half a second time. Keep going really fast as you can. Now this third step, very important, fold it in half a third time. Fold that paper in half one more time. This is the third fold, folding it in half a third time. Okay. Now keep up. Make sure you keep up because we got to go really fast. We don't have a lot of time. You're going to need to make a lot of these. So the next thing you're going to do is tear off the top corner. So tear off the top corner, just rip it off, bite it off if you have to. We got to move fast. Go, 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 go. Tear it off as fast as you can. And now I want you to tear off the bottom corner. Tear off the bottom corner this time. Just rip it off as fast as you can. If it's not going, just get in there and tear it off. So you got the top corner and the bottom corner torn off. Okay, now you should be done by now. If not, you probably didn't pass the training program. Now, if you will, unfold your piece of paper and let's see what it looks like. Obviously, we're making product number 8, so it should look like an 8, right? How many of you have a product number 8? How many of you have something that looks like a number 8? Well, I don't know. Maybe some of you, maybe not all of you. So if yours looks like an 8, let's pretend that it's because you're talented and smart, but I think we all know maybe there's a bit of luck. I was not being a very good trainer just now. And if yours does not look like an 8, it's not your fault. It's my fault. I did not do a good job training. But this is what product number 8, this is what it should look like. An 8. So it was a very bad training program. I want to ask you a question. And if you would like to, you can share this as a comment. What's something you're training employees on right now? And we're going to use this exercise as an example of what poor training looks like and what good training can look like, and look like very quickly. So if you're working on something right now, let me know. But we're going to go through what went wrong with product number 8. I bet you can guess already a few things that I did wrong. Let me share with you. This is my question for you. So what are you training right now? If you want to share that with me via a comment, and I'll try to use that to address some of your training programs with some suggestions, especially if you have a question about something you're training right now, share that as a comment. And again, we'll use product number 8 to highlight what I did wrong just now, but later on, remember we had 2 pieces of paper. Later on, we'll talk about what went well. So put that away for just a moment. All right, so tell me what you're working on right now. It'll take a moment for me to see it. There's about a 10-second delay. So we'll hide that. So there's a few things while we're working on this. There's a few things that I want to share with you to allow you to very quickly train employees on especially on basic skills. And the very first thing that I want to share with you, and probably the most important step of them all, is before you train, we have to define good performance. What's the performance that we want to see? So as an example here, right, product number 8. Notice I didn't show you, I didn't clearly define for you, the learner, what good performance looks like. I said product number 8. And in my mind, I knew exactly what I was thinking of, an 8. But in your minds, you might not have thought it looks like an 8 or even known how to get there. So one of the most important things that we can do before training is to define what good performance looks like, because that's our target for the training. So I've noticed some of you were working on a new call center rep or a new telephone system, phone sales. All of these are topics. So you're doing exactly what I asked you to do. But if you want to train someone on that topic, you need to define what does performance look like for someone who's trained. If it's, and some of them are more difficult than others. So if it's an ERP system, there's probably a series of tasks. If they can complete the tasks, they've been trained. If it's communication skills, that's a little bit more difficult. What specifically do they need to do? That's one of the biggest mistakes that trainers make when they train on something, especially in those so-called soft skills. What soft skills really mean is we haven't defined them. And if I haven't defined them, then I can't train them, because if I can't clearly articulate what good looks like, then I certainly can't clearly articulate how to be good. So I got one question ahead of time, and I think it's really applicable to this. I want to read it. This came from Crystal. And Crystal said, and see if you can relate to this challenge. The question was, one challenge has been knowing how much material is too much. And Crystal's looking for suggestions and ideas so we don't lose people by covering too much content. Well, often we cover too much content because we have not defined good performance. So how are the two related? Well, if I don't define good performance, then I just start throwing content at them that I think they might need, or I think they might use at some point. But if I define good performance, let's say we'll go back to product number 8 for just a moment. If I define good performance, then the only content you should be delivering is content that's going to help people make product number 8. I don't need the history of product number 8. I don't need the philosophy behind product number 8. I don't need to know about product number 7 or product number 9 at this point in time. All I need to make product number 8 is how to make product number 8. So the answer to the too much content question actually comes from defining good performance and targeting your training to the performance you're trying to help a participant achieve. And we often give too much when we haven't clarified what we want someone to do. Okay, so that's the first thing. I, in my mind, knew what I was looking for here, but did not make it clear to you what the target was, what we're looking for. So how do we fix that? Okay, so we've defined good performance. We can clarify that. There's more that we need to do now. And let me go to this next one here. Get rid of this one. There's a very simple method that you may have heard of before called tell, show, do. Now, there's a lot of different ways that we can train people. I like to keep things simple. And I think that tell, show, do works very, very well for many, many skills that we might want to train someone on. So as an example, we go back to product number 8. Think about how could we train people to make product number 8? Well, first we have to have a very clear picture of good performance. The next thing is following this tell, show, do model. I'll tell you how to do it. I'll show you how to do it, and I'll have you do it. The problem though, and we saw this if you participated in the exercise, if I go too fast or I'm unclear, then it doesn't allow you an opportunity to ask questions or keep up. So one of the things that is really important to this process is making sure that you are going slow enough to allow your participants to keep up, and make sure, if possible, that you're able to stop at each checkpoint along the way, that they've done each step correctly. Now, that's a little tough to do in this scenario, right? When there's a lot of people who are tuning in and we're all over the world, and I can't see if you are doing product number 8 correctly or incorrectly. So that's a little different. But I would say this is more educational than training, if that makes sense. But if I'm training, let's say one-on-one, or there's a class of 10 of you, then for each step along the way, I'll probably have you, okay, fold it in half. I want to make sure everybody's folded in half correctly before I move on to the next step. So I'll say, tell, fold it in half. I'll show you, I want you to fold it in half. And then I'll have you do it, fold it in half. And I'll verify everybody did it correctly before we move on to the next step. So I got another question here that came in ahead of time. This was one from David. And David said, with new employees coming in, they have to use large tools. And what they would normally do is demonstrate how to do the task with this large tool. I'm not sure exactly what the tools are, but some large tool. And then have the new hire, the trainee, do it. But now the challenge is we have to sanitize the tools and keep 6 feet apart. So not being able to see the environment and know what the possibilities are, it's a little tough for me to give specifics, but I can give some general advice I think that applies to a lot of us, which is we'd ask ourselves, is there a different way that I can show participants? For example, is there another set of tools somewhere else, whether it's in the same spot or remote? If that's not possible, can I pre-record a video of how to use the tools correctly, even if I'm standing right by them, well, 6 feet away, but the video can show them how to use the tools. They can stop the video, and then I can walk them through using the tools themselves. So they get the visual without having to go through the whole sanitization process. The other thing is the sanitization process might actually be a valuable part of training. If we have to sanitize these tools while we use them anyway, then why not reinforce those behaviors through training? And each time we use the tools, sanitize the tools just like we would do on the job. There's a principle in training that the closer the training is to the real job, the more authentic and effective it becomes. As an example, if I were to train you how to drive a car, what do you think works best? Is it taking an e-learning program, listening to a lecture, or driving a car? I mean, the other parts might be somewhat helpful, but ultimately it's driving a car and that experience and learning what mistakes you make and what mistakes not to make, learning where you're strong, where you have challenges. That's what you will ultimately need to do at some point before you can drive a car. So, David, if you're tuning in, I hope that answers your question. I have one question here about, I don't put this up here, about defining good performance. And is that more about clear and concise training objectives? Yes, you nailed it. Absolutely. Clear training objectives. Now, I don't want to make this too complicated. And if I'm designing a bigger program, I will have really crystal clear training objectives. And those objectives will focus on performance. But if I'm doing something simple, like I just want to show you how to make product number 8, then make product number 8 is pretty much the objective. And we don't have to get too complicated. But you're absolutely right. It is about clear and concise training objectives. Okay, so I want to think about this for just a moment. This is an opportunity, if you will. Grab your second piece of paper. Let's walk through this together. So remember, we tell this tell, show, do. Let's try this tell, show, do process with product number 8 and see how we do as a group this second time around. So with the tell, show, do process, the very first thing I'm going to ask you to do is, so we're going to try to make product number 8. And as we know, product number 8, it looks like an 8. And there's a few steps that we can take to create it together. So the very first thing, I've created some props. It's a little easier because it's difficult for me to fold it in the air. The very first thing I want you to do with your piece of paper, hopefully there's not too much glare, is fold it in half, but the fold should go from top to bottom. So take the top and fold it down to the bottom like this. Get a really nice crease. So I'll give you a moment to do that. If I'm training a smaller group and we're not on this kind of one-way broadcast, here I would make sure before I moved on that everyone had a fold that looks like this. You know, some people might take, I'll use this other one. Some people might take their paper and fold it this way, which would not be the correct way to fold it. So we would adjust that before moving on. So your paper should look like this for your first fold. Now we're going to fold it in half again. And the way we're going to do that, I'm going to go to my next prop, is I want you to fold it in half again this way. All right, so you're just going to take one side. So you're going to do this horizontally this time, one side, and you're going to go from this side to this one, just like that. So I want you to take a look at what you have. Make sure that it looks just like mine. But again, your fold for fold number 2 should look like this. So it's the telling. I'm giving you the verbal instructions. I'm also showing you with the demonstration. You're doing it. The part that's missing is I'm not able to observe if you're doing it correctly. But if you're training someone, that's an important element. We want to make sure that's in there. Okay, third step is we're going to fold it one more time. And again, we're going to fold it vertically again. So we're going to go from top to bottom. And that's what this looks like here. All right, so from top to bottom. And that's our third fold right here, top to bottom. So if you will, take your piece of paper, fold it from top to bottom. And so this is where, after 3 folds, this is what it should look like. It started out as a piece of paper. Then it went to this first fold, the second fold, and now this. So we should all have this. Now, here is where we're going to make 2 tears. And I realize, even though we've been walking through these steps, there's one important element for the tears. I want you to locate at the top corner. I'm going to try to describe this. Usually I use right and left, but I realize with the cameras we might have a mirroring effect. So you should have, if you look at the top of this, there's 2 corners, right? And one corner, you can see all of the edges of the paper right here, right? You can see all of these edges. And in the other corner, like here at the top, this is where the fold is. I want you to tear off this corner. Tear it off diagonally. Now, let me show you what that looks like. So it should look like this, right? So we're going to tear off the corner. Oops, yeah. Tear off the corner so it looks like that. It's a diagonal tear. And by the way, we haven't talked about tools. Depending on the weight of your paper, you might need a pair of scissors. If you have them handy, that could be extremely helpful to you. All right, so tear that off. And now I want you to tear off the opposite corner. So we tear it off the top corner that's connected to the folds. Now just go diagonally across and tear off this corner right here. Okay, hopefully, this is the hard part. So as trainers, I'm going to pause for a moment while you're doing that. As trainers, we're trying to get feedback from our learners. Maybe I'm going too slow for you right now, and you're like, I already did this. I got an 8 and a 7 and a 9. Or maybe I'm going too fast. And with only one-way communication, it's really difficult to know if I'm going at the correct speed or not. So when we're doing the tell, show, do, you've noticed I've demonstrated that. I've told you, I've showed you, I'm relying on you to do it though. And that feedback part, that part's missing in this particular demonstration. So let's unfold it. And I want to know, how did it go? Did you get an 8 this time? Let me know in the comments if you got an 8 this time. Fingers crossed, hoping that you did. So that's an example of how we could take something that goes from too fast and not really focused on the learner's performance, but more focused on just telling content, fold, 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 tear, tear. When I slowed things down and I focused on the learner using the tell, show, do technique, I'm guessing far more of you were able to get the 8 this time. Now, some people will say, hey, and I'm seeing the yeses come in. All right, victory, we did it. Some people might notice this took longer than the first time. And I want you to think through that. It definitely took longer. We have to ask ourselves, though, the first time it went faster, but you weren't able to do it. For many of you, you did not get an 8. So the training, we didn't gain anything from going faster. The goal is for people to do the task. And so that's why going slower up front means better performance in the future. And so awesome. Great to hear all the yeses. This is the moment of triumph, right? You were such good sports and so patient with me when we did the bad example. And now we have the moment of victory. We did it correctly. I'm seeing the yeses come in. So this leads us to the last piece, and that is this third step. When I see the desired performance, I can assume that they're trained. Now, there's various levels of how do I assess performance, and should I give them a quiz, or how do I evaluate training? That's a whole long conversation. So I want to make this simple for you and easy. If I'm training you to make product number 8, and you can make product number 8, then you've been trained. Now here's the difference, though, and I think this is the caveat that's important. We really need to see you be able to do it on your own to say that you've been trained. So we walked through this very carefully together. You came up with product number 8. If we were doing this training program as a group or one-on-one, what I would probably do is say, okay, you've done it successfully now. Let's do it again. Get another piece of paper and walk through the steps on your own. And once someone's able to do that on their own without me really intervening, I can say, okay, they've been trained. They can demonstrate the performance. And here's where, as a trainer, you might have to think about, well, do I need instructions or photos or other guides or resources to help people out? Trainers often overdo it. We give people more content than they really need, but you might need something, whether it's simply the numbered steps or a simple diagram to remember at least the first few times how to do that. That's okay if people have to follow that diagram or that chart to complete the task, as long as they can do it on their own. And if they can't do it on their own, they might just need some more repetition, some more coaching until they get it. What I see some people do, though, is they make the mistake of assuming that I've trained someone when I've gone through all the content. So I've told you all the things, so now you're trained. Or the training is X amount of time, and it's been an hour, so you're trained. That's not really true. That just means the event is over or the content has been delivered. But someone has not been trained until they can do the task on their own. And that actually leads us to the last thing that I want to share with you. This is a bonus. And I want to invite you at this time, if you haven't already, if you have a question for me about quickly training people on new skills, this is a great time to share it so I can cover it during our live broadcast. So I've got one more bonus thing for you, and that is reinforcement. And what this means is that just because someone is able to demonstrate a skill in training, it does not mean that they will be using that skill on the job. There's a lot of factors that go into it. For example, I might not have enough of the right tools or resources to do the job correctly. Maybe I accidentally start tearing the wrong corner and I don't catch it and I can't figure out what I did wrong. So we often will need some sort of reinforcement along the way to help people improve their skills and to help people be able to continue to use the correct skill. So I'll give you a couple of examples. I'm going to put it in the comments here. I have something I call customer service tip of the week. It's one tip via email once a week. And I shared a link for those of you who are following me on LinkedIn. If you're tuned in via the event, I don't think the link will show up on the event. So I'll put it there in just a moment. But what it is it's one tip once a week via email. And the genesis of this came from training programs I was doing and managers saying, this is great, but I need some way to reinforce what they just learned. So we came up with this weekly email where there was one tip from the training program, and we'll just focus on that this week, and then we'll move on to the next one. So if you'd like, I invite you to sign up for it. It's completely free. You can share it with your teams. You can have other people sign up, but it's an example of ongoing continuous reinforcement. With the job aid, with number 8, product number 8, we might need to give people a job aid or access to a diagram or instructions. And again, job aids is a long discussion. It can be a big field. What I would generally say is work with your learners to figure out what's the easiest, simplest thing that you can give them. As an example, I once worked with a client where they were really struggling to get people to follow security procedures for answering a door and letting visitors in. And they went all back and forth. And how do we train this? And people would they'd train people and then people would forget. You know, the receptionists who used them every day knew them cold, but other people did not. And what we came up with was the simplest solution you can imagine. Right next to the door where there was a little intercom, they had to do a couple of things to screen visitors. They simply posted the 3-step procedure right next to the intercom. So it wasn't something people had to remember. It wasn't something they had to look up, go into an intranet site or go back into their email to remember what that email was. Right at the time of need, which is I'm going to the door, I'm going to the intercom, there are the 3 steps. So a good job aid is very simple and accessible right when you need it and not in your way when you don't. Okay. Let's see, we've got another question here. When I train someone on problem-solving techniques, what would you suggest to measure the success criteria? So the answer is it goes back to defining good performance. Why are you training them on problem-solving techniques? What problems are you training them to solve? And if we define good performance, then we can evaluate whether or not they've achieved good performance. But if you're not able to identify that or clarify that or articulate that, then you aren't yet ready to define training. So I hope that answers that question for you. Let's see what else we've got here. Oh, I think I wanted to ask you one more question. We've got just a moment left here. I know what it was. I have another resource for you. And I'm going to share it with you real quickly, and then I'm going to tell you how to get it. So I have an entire course on LinkedIn Learning. This is a snapshot today, but I have an entire course on LinkedIn Learning on how to design and deliver training programs. And what's cool about the course is it's actually filmed in front of a live audience. And everything that I do in the training program, you can actually see the live audience go through each and every activity, see where they did well, see the challenges that they had, etc. So I've made this course free for you. So this is the reinforcement. I've made this course free for you. All you have to do is go to my LinkedIn profile. And on my LinkedIn profile, if you're following me, you'll see that I've made it free to anyone who follows me. So you're on it right now. Just click on my face on LinkedIn. You'll get to my profile. You'll see what else I've shared. And if you don't already have access to LinkedIn Learning, When you click on this, you'll get free access for the next 24 hours. So I've made this free for you as a way of reinforcing what we've talked about today. All right. So let's see. I've got one more question that was sent in advance, and we are just running out of time. So I will get to other questions offline. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I appreciate this. The one question I got in advance was really specific to contact centers and training people side by side. And if you'd asked that question, I actually don't recommend we do side by side. Side by sides would be one person types, the other person talks. And the reason is that's not the task. So we want to train people the way as close to the task as possible. And the task that people do in a contact center is talking on the phone and typing. When we separate those tasks, we actually create confusion, and it takes longer to train people. So I can probably provide, I think Crystal asked that question. I can provide a deeper explanation online, but that in a big picture, I don't recommend doing that at all. Okay, I don't want to take more of your time. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will look for your questions offline and respond to the ones I didn't get to. I hope you gained something of value today. Leave a comment. Let me know what you're taking away from this or what additional questions you have. And hopefully I'll see you at another event sometime soon. Thank you.